My name is Donny Rafford. I'm Chief Warrant Officer 4 with the Maine Army National Guard. Currently a Black Hawk pilot out of Bangor in Gulf Company 3rd of the 126th. I've been flying in aviation now since 2007. I started my career in 1997. I was standing in the kitchen of my house in Holton, Maine, and my father said to me, "What are you doing after high school?" I said, "Well, I think I'd like to go to college." He said, "How would you like to pay for that?" Kind of scratched my head for a second. I was like, well, then I guess I need to figure out a way. So I joined the National Guard. At the time, I went into the Field Artillery, which is 13 Bravo in Holton, Maine, also in the Maine Army Guard. I went to basic training. It was my junior year I joined, January 1997. Between my junior and senior year, I went to basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I was there for 8 weeks, finished that up, came back, and then for those of you who remember, there was a big fish concert that summer, so I got back the day before school was supposed to start, but the first day of school was canceled because they couldn't run the buses because the fish concert traffic was backed up from Holton to Limestone. I completed my senior year at Holton High School, and then I went back to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for my training as 13 Bravo in the artillery. I spent 6 weeks there and learned how to be a cannon crew member on 155 howitzers, and came back to Maine and then went off to USM. And then I kind of went in and out of school for a few years. Then September 11th happened in 2001. Things got a little different for the military, especially in the Guard reserve capacity. In 2003, I was going to class and at USM, and I got a phone call from my first sergeant saying that we were getting activated and we were going to be headed overseas. So that kind of changed things for me as far as my military career goes. I left school and then we did all of our training for that, our pre-training. Then we went to Fort Dix, New Jersey in, I think it was January of 2004. And then we shipped off to, we went to Kuwait first in April of 2004. We got trained as military police at Fort Dix, and we were supposed to be going to Bagram, Afghanistan to do detainee operations. We get to Kuwait and they lay out a map, and lo and behold, it was a map of Iraq, not Afghanistan. So we ended up going to Iraq, spent the better part of 13 months in the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. It's a big controversy with the Abu Ghraib prison that most people are familiar with. Someday someone will write a book about it, talking about how the Maine Army Guard played a giant part in repairing the black eye that was caused by the abuse that took place at the prison. We came in after them, we relieved that unit, and then we had to deal with all of the stuff that they left behind, and all the repercussions that came for that, and we tried to leave it better for the people that replaced us. We rotated back home, spent a couple months just kind of bouncing around trying to figure out what to do with life. Decided it was better to go back overseas, so I jumped on another deployment. Unfortunately, I got hurt and didn't make the deployment. I finished the training but didn't make the deployment. I came back to Maine and I got a job as a recruiter doing ADOS orders, which is basically just temporary active duty. How that works is you just kind of go a few months at a time, and then they either renew it or they run out of money and they can't renew it, or you leave and you go do something else. So while I was doing the recruiting, I met Chief Buzzell, who was a member of the Maine Army National Guard up in Bangor, who was in charge of recruiting for aviation. And I talked with him at length, and he told me all the steps to become a pilot, and we started on day one doing the AFAST, and we did the flight physical, and then we did all the eye exam, and then I went up and made my FedRec board, and then I think from the time I met him to the time I was at flight school was about 3 months. So it's something I've been interested in for a lot of years, and it just took that one chance meeting to get to that point. So in 2007, July 2007, I shipped off to Fort Rucker in Alabama, which is now Fort Navasel. I went through the Warrant Officer Candidate course there, and I spent, I think it was 5 weeks going through walk school. Finished that and pinned on W1, which in the Army, a W1 it's Warrant Officer 1. You're not a commissioned officer until you become a CW2. So my father flew down and pinned me for that, and then I started my flight school venture. We did all the prerequisite courses, then we went on to flying TH-67s, which is where they teach you how to fly a helicopter. I'll be honest, the first time I got in a helicopter, I sat in the seat and I looked down and I saw the pedals and I was like, why are there pedals on this? Had no idea, so that goes to show you anybody can do it. There is a hover button, I promise you, they don't give it to you for several weeks. After your initial training, then you go on to your advanced airframe. For the Army Guard and Reserve soldiers, you already know what airframe you're going to fly. So you have that in the back of your mind. But for the active duty folks, they're at the mercy of Uncle Sam. Once they finish their training, they go to their selection and they get what they get. I went on to the UH-60 course and completed that. Came home in November of 2009. Went back to my unit in Bangor, and since I've been home to that unit, we've deployed twice. We deployed 2012-13 to Kuwait. We took over for the Navy doing medevac operations there out of Udari Airfield in Camp Buring. And then in 2018-19, we went to Afghanistan. I went to Bagram with one platoon. We did medevac operations out of Bagram, and the rest of our company was out of Kandahar. Did a couple of months up in Bagram, and then the rest of my deployment, I was down in Kandahar. We took over the PR CASVAC mission for the Pedros, which is part of the Air Force. They fly the PJs around, and they have the helicopters with the mustaches on them. I'm sure that you're all familiar with those. Once they vacated, we took over that, and we stood up a program for the Army, where it was a joint force with the Army and the Air Force, and we left that in good hands when we departed in 2019. Since 2019, we've just been training with my unit in Bangor, doing our normal progression, reset after deployment, where some guys retire, some get out for various reasons, and now we're just trying to get the end strength back up. So I've been in the Guard now for almost 28 years. It'll be 28 years in January. I currently work overseas in a civilian capacity as a DoD contract pilot. So I'm working with the military, but as a civilian. It takes up a lot of my time. I'm gone a little over half the year every year, just in small increments. It's tough on the family, but fortunately for me, I have a fantastic wife and support system between my kids and family and wife. The idea is probably, I'm looking to step back from the military, so probably gonna look at retirement sometime next year. Nothing's in stone yet, but I think that's where it needs to be. Something in life has to give time to your family, and I think I've given enough time to Uncle Sam to concentrate a little more on my family while I'm home. I think my wife has been more than supportive, and my family's been more than supportive. I grew up in a military family, so it's sort of second nature to me. My grandfather was in the military. My grandfather on my mom's side was in the military. My father was in the military. Both my brothers were in the military. My father was smart enough to go Air Force. Both my brothers went Navy, and then I joined the Guard. My older brother did 23 years active duty. He was actually, most of his career was here in Brunswick, flying on the P3s and then the P8 Poseidons out of Maryland, which is where he still lives now. He just kind of stayed in the river, in the area after he retired, and he's still working there as a contractor now. My younger brother was medically retired. He had an incident take place. Nobody really knows what happened. It was unfortunate medically. He was medevac to Germany, and then he was brought back to Bethesda, which is the Navy's version of Walter Reed. He spent, I think it was 8 months in Bethesda, and he got discharged, and he was paralyzed for about 3.5 years. But he made a recovery. I'm not gonna say full recovery, because I don't think he'll ever be fully recovered, but he's living his best life now. He has a wife, 2 kids, and he's a stay-at-home dad, and pack leader and goes to all the sporting events. I mean, he's living his best life. My father retired, I think, after 23 years. He retired out of the Air Force and then joined the Guard because he just wanted to spend more time serving his community. And my grandfather on my father's side was a Korean War veteran, as well as my mother's side. Well, I think having a family history of the military makes it, I'm not going to say that it's ingrained in you, but it certainly makes it more a part of your life and a more normal part of your life. I grew up on military bases, so I was accustomed to moving every 2 or 3 years. When I was in Holton at the high school, I got there my freshman year of high school, and these kids that were coming up into their freshman year of high school, they've been friends since, they were 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And, I've never had that. So not since college, where that was 20-something years ago now. So, well, I would say that the military, I mean, it's been the bigger part of my adult life. And not to mention, growing up, like I said, in the military. It instills a lot of values in you, not like the poster values that you see, the selfless service, duty, honor, integrity. But I will speak to that one. It's integrity. I was actually talking about that this morning. It's one of those things that's instilled in you, is integrity and accountability. Those are two of my biggest hang-ups with people, the way I conduct myself and what I expect out of people. Integrity, it's basically just doing the right thing when no one's looking. And there's so many people today that will take a shortcut. They'll just sidestep the right thing to do, keep going, and no one is any the wiser because they didn't know that even happened. And then accountability. Accountability has its hand in everybody's pocket. Whether it's you say you're going to be there to do this, or, you'll be there at this time, or, you're going to deliver this product. You don't have to be 100% on those, but the important thing is to just own it when you're not. If you're deficient on something, just own your deficiency. That's it. That's accountability. My watch has vibrated about a dozen times since I've been sitting here, and every time that it vibrates is a group message of a few of my flight school friends and I. Some of them are still in, some are retired, and one of the guys in the group, his widow is still in it. My friend Tim, we lost him in, I think, November of last year. 49 years old, and cancer got him, It blows my mind to think that all the things that we've been through and all the experiences that we've had with, combat and deployments and just the inherent dangerous, avenue of aviation, and then it's cancer that gets you, It's a bear. But I have had friends from the moment I entered the military to present day that I will never lose. They will reach out if I don't reach out. It's a lot easier now with social media, being able to keep track of each other on Facebook or text messages, or those just a phone call. When that whole scandal came out at the Abu Ghraib prison, it was right around April. I think we got there in February, and I think the media caught wind of it in April. And then the American people's inherent need to know, they had to push it, and then the media just grew and grew. And it didn't bode well for us. Like, what people don't understand is that instability in the United States is recognized as a weakness by our adversaries, and they capitalize that, and they'll jump on those, and they certainly took the opportunities. We became the most bombed FOB in Iraq in 2004. And fortunately for us, we made it out relatively unscathed. And those bonds that you form during times of turmoil and just discontent are you will always have that bond. We just had a 20-year reunion in Waterville a couple of weeks ago, and it's the first time I've seen some of those guys since we got home, and it's like nothing's changed. It's a lifetime. 20 years is a lifetime, and it's like I saw them yesterday. So my first deployment in 2004, Initially, it was pretty difficult to keep in contact at home. They did have what they called internet cafes. You'd wait in a long line. You didn't have a cell phone to play on because cell phones weren't really a thing. You just kind of stood in the line, you talked to your friends, it was your turn to use the internet. I think you had 30 minutes to use the internet. So in 30 minutes, you were sending all the emails, answering all the emails you could, and then you had to get up and move out because, you know, everybody behind you was waiting just like you just did. My follow-on deployments were much easier. You have your cell phones, and then they had internet cafes. I mean, essentially, we were there for so long in Iraq and Afghanistan that the infrastructure that was built up was not much different than being at any other base in the U.S., to include what they had for food options with, Burger King and Taco Bell and Subway. So my first aviation deployment was in 2012, and that was a year after a friend of mine was killed in Afghanistan in an Apache. His widow and son picked out a little charm for me, and I attached it to a dog tag chain. I looped it through my belt loop and keep it in my pocket. So that was 2012, 2024. So for 12 years, I've had it attached to my belt loop. So it's been on every flight I've been on. For the Afghanistan deployment, the Family Readiness Group put together these like laminated hands. So you trace the children's hands, and then there's a little message on them, and then they laminate them, and I keep it in my left breast pocket, and I take it out to do laundry, and then I put it back in after the laundry, and it's been on every flight since 2018. If you've been to college and you had college friends, it's kind of like that. Or your senior year of high school, and your summer parties and your pit parties. It's kind of like that. It's a great group of friends, and it's interesting though in the military, the culture. You could be best friends with someone to your left and your right that in the civilian world you would probably never even speak to. Lo and behold, 20 years later, you're still sending each other memes and jokes and checking on each other's families. It's amazing, and that's one of the best parts of the military. I would say, I guess, if you're thinking about joining the military, then weigh your options. See what it is that you want out of the military, because they're going to get what they want out of you, but you have to understand what you want out of them and make sure that you advocate for yourself and you get what you want. There's a lot to offer. There's several different branches of the military. All of them have similar offers, and some have very different offers. So just go for what you are interested in, what's best for you, and understand that it's a lifestyle commitment. It's different. You can't go to work on Monday while you're at your initial training and decide, hey, I'm going to sleep through this class. I can't do that. You're owned by Uncle Sam now. That's your life. You chose it. Make the best of it. I promise you, you'll be better for it in the end. So I joined the Legion here in Yarmouth. I think it was last year sometime. My neighbor across the street, Miss Kenna, she's been talking to me about it since I moved in 2017. So I finally joined. I'm yet to make it to a meeting because the schedule that they have and my schedule don't really jive. I'm a lifetime member at the AMVETS up on North Road. I actually just finally stopped by there at their little car show last Thursday. I brought my son over. I try to be active in other avenues with different veteran organizations, like a Sports Stars and Stripes Brewing Company up in Freeport. I think the shirt I'm wearing is from Valhalla, Till Valhalla. I'm sure that my shorts, yeah. There's a lot of veteran organizations out there, and I try to support where I can. I would say that the biggest honor that I had while I was serving is after my friend Chris was killed in Afghanistan, his family asked if I would escort him home. it was the biggest honor that anybody could have, is to be asked to do something like that, and the fact that I was able to. Yeah, I mean, just I met a lot of great people. We've lost a lot of them along the way. Unfortunately, the reality is there's still more tomorrow and the next day and the next day. It's the biggest thing that we can do. I say we because I'm a part-time, right? I'm in the National Guard, so I'm the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year kind of guy. The best thing you can do is stand behind the service members and support them. They can't stand in front of you if you're not willing to stand behind them.